it exactly that you bring to this?
I'm a planner. I make plans.
You've already made the plan, so...
If the existing plan fails, I make a new plan.
So you make plans that fail?
No.
Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is actually awesome. I figured this movie would go one of two ways. It would either be a really fun fantasy movie or a horrible attempt to milk every dollar they could out of the IP, but it turned out genuinely great. Bear in mind this is coming from someone that's never played Dungeons & Dragons before, nor am I familiar with the lore surrounding it. D&D is something I've seen everywhere, so I'm not completely unfamiliar with it, but I'm as disconnected from it as any nerd that never went out of their way to learn about it would be. From my perspective, this was a classic fantasy adventure with several heroes accompanying a quote-unquote main character. This is done fantastically with a diverse group of characters that seemed original enough to be interesting while also sticking to the fantasy we all know and love. There are wizards, warriors, and all kinds of characters that I imagine are unique to D&D. Wizards have always been my favorite part of fantasy, so to me they're crucial to whether a movie is good or not, and in this case they're by far the coolest characters in my opinion. The magic and spells are both visually impressive and seem to have a huge impact. They did a good job of making wizards seem incredibly powerful and also pretty weak in the case of Simon because it made sense for the story. What's so great about D&D Honor Among Thieves is that all of the characters had unique strengths that made them seem just as useful as a good wizard, which made each character very fun to watch. The combat of the different warrior type characters were really entertaining and full of action. I loved watching them fight hordes of enemies because they looked extremely fluid and had very familiar movesets and matched what I've come to expect from fantasy movies. The fighting was also very over the top at times, which some people might not like, but I thought it was perfect and added just another element to keep me invested in what was happening on the screen. But the fighting wasn't the main draw. I think weirdly enough, the most important part of the movie was the comedy. It seems so strange to say a fantasy movie relied on comedy, but this one truly did. That's not a bad thing at all, and in my opinion, as someone who loves comedies, I think it worked better than I even expected. The jokes and kind of slapstick humor presented was actually hilarious and brought the tone to something more delightful to mass audiences. This isn't Lord of the Rings, so there aren't 20-minute long conversations that are extremely deep and progress the story far beyond what could be done in a normal paced story. This is a silly adventure where what matters are the shenanigans that the characters get into, not necessarily the end goal. I think this was a very important and well-planned attempt to grab the attention of casual movie fans. Not everyone wants to go see a 3.5-hour long movie about characters they don't know, walking from town to town trying to find something that was right next to where they started. The average audience wants to laugh and quickly build a connection to characters that aren't incredibly deep but have enough emotion to feel like a person. D&D Honor Among Thieves does this perfectly with never-ending jokes and a group of heroes that are almost impossible to not like. Simon, for example, is a lovely wizard that is absolutely hilarious. He seems to never do anything right and is the butt of almost every joke. He has many quick comments that made me genuinely burst out in laughter, and his character alone made this movie worth watching for me. But like I said, these characters don't have much depth and you'd have a hard time digging into many of them further than what's shown on the surface. But there's still plenty to love for those that are more than casual movie fans and look for more than laughs out of a movie. The story was fantastic in my opinion and had all the makings of a great fantasy movie. The enemies and beasts were awesome. There was something that looked like a Black Panther that displayed a hologram to distract its prey, and it was so cool to me. Those of you that are familiar with D&D most likely know what these creatures are, but to me this was a very fresh idea for an enemy and I thought it was awesome. The story was also very well written and progressed at a pace that kept me invested and immersed in what was happening. It had all the steps of a classic fantasy. They went to a town to find out what they had to do, then they went and found gear and continued from there. Like I've said many times already, I love fantasy and this really scratched that itch for me. The ending was the perfect payoff for watching through the entire thing and I never for a second felt disappointed. Truthfully, the trailers really didn't do the movie many favors at all. While they were definitely funny, they didn't make it seem like there was any real story, which turned out to not be the case. I thought Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves was an absolute blast and 100% worth watching, but what did you think? Let me know if you liked it or thought there was something they could have done better. I'm curious to know if people that play D&D actually enjoyed what they did with the movie. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date with my videos. I'll see you next time.